We mentioned earlier in the broadcast, President Obama officially began his re-election campaign over the weekend. He blasted his expected Republican opponent, Mitt Romney, on a number of issues.
Here to look at the race are author and Wall Street Journal columnist Peggy Noonan and former Democratic Senator Bill Bradley, who ran for president in 2000. His new book is called We Can All Do Better. Welcome. Great to see you.
Good to be with you,
So
Charles.
this race is neck and neck. This race is dead even?
Yeah, everybody says it is, and I think maybe for the first time in a while, everybody's right. It does look pretty close.
Even in the most important states, the decisive states, it seems to be dead even.
Yeah.
Who will determine this, Bill? Independents?
I think independents are a big role. I think also the black turnout will be important, and the Hispanic turnout will be important. I think that also how people feel about the two candidates once they get to know them even better, because I think the fundamental question that somebody asks when they're going to vote for president is, who do I trust with my life, who do I trust with my job, and who has a view of life that's remotely similar to my own.
You saw what Biden said, the vice president said about same-sex marriage. He's gone further than the president has. Will that become an issue?
I hope not, because that's not the real issue. The real issue is what's happened to the middle class in this country in the last 20 years. I mean, the reality is that the median income in 2010 was the same as it was in 1996. There are people who can't get loans in small businesses. The fact of the matter is that the economy is the major issue and has always been and will be in this
So should
campaign.
it be a referendum on what the president has done with respect to the economy?
I think that it should be a referendum on who would be the best leader in the next 4 years, given our circumstances. The president came into office. He had the worst economic circumstance since the Great Depression. He had 2 wars that he had to deal with. He has moved on all of those very decisively. Now, he didn't get as much as he wanted. I think he didn't get as much as he wanted because of the role of money in politics. I think it is the Washington Club and money that has prevented him from achieving what he set out to achieve in the fullest sense of the word, even though he has made a lot of progress.
I think this is the way it's going to be. People are going to look at the last 3 years and say, okay, we know what that was. If you want more of that, you can rehire, reelect the fellow who is the leader then. If you don't, you have to look at the other person, and if he is credible, you can give him support. One of the things that I think people have on their mind with regard to Obama is that there's 2 ways to looking at where he started. One, as Bill says, he came in a time of terrible economic crisis. We had 2 wars going. Wall Street is upending. It was dreadful. It is also true that he won by 9.5 million votes. He was enormously popular. He had a Democratic House, a Democratic Senate. He had the wind at his back. He could do anything, plus an air of crisis to push things forward. And some people look at what he did and say, he didn't do the right things. It didn't help enough.
Clearly, the president has difficulty in having the same kind of enthusiasm he had in 2008.
Yes.
You see it with the youth, especially.
Yes.
There is also the question, though, can conservatives bring about the same kind of enthusiasm for Romney that they might have had for a more conservative nominee?
Yeah, I think that's true. Although I still go back to getting people excited on both sides is going to be very important. If we have an enormously negative campaign, as it looks like we're probably going to, the president's announcement the other day was pretty pugilistic and almost a little grim in tone. That may tend to keep down response and voter participation on both sides, so we'll see how that goes. I was inspired a little bit by the fact that France just voted, and whatever the outcome, turnout was high. That's a good thing.
74%, I think, something like that.
That's pretty good.
What do you make of Arnold Schwarzenegger writing in the LA Times talking about the Republican Party? And you say both candidates have a tough time connecting. They both need to do a better job.
Yeah, it's a funny thing.
But he writes this morning basically blasting the Republican Party about this new and narrow litmus test that they have that doesn't allow for compromise. Is that going to be, and part of this comes from the conservatives that Charlie mentioned, is that going to be a major hurdle with people like independents?
I think the Republican Party continues to have a big fight on its hands. And I must tell you, it's had that fight on its hands for about 50 years. But on-the-ground conservatives look at Washington the past 20 years and they say, no matter who we send to Washington, it keeps spending more. The government keeps getting bigger, keeps regulating more. So we're going to have to get tougher about who we send, more conservative. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. More strict. I am a big tenter myself when I think of the Republican Party, and I think, look, there's lots of room for lots of people. I understand Governor Schwarzenegger's criticism, believe me. With the problems we face, we're going to need many different kinds of heads coming from many different places to solve them, I think.
In your book, We Can All Do Better, you argue and have argued that you got to change Congress.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, and that depends on citizens. In 2008, on that evening in Chicago, for example, we made the mistake of believing that a leader can renew the country all by himself. And even a leader like Barack Obama, who touched us so deeply, can't do it alone. It takes citizens, it takes lieutenants and sergeants out there. Ultimately, democracy is not a vicarious experience. And in the internet age, the idea that you can fail to participate should not be an option.
Could I add also that sometimes I think, in support of your point, it's a point made in this book, we sometimes come to think, because we focus so much on the presidency in America, we think the presidency is a magical office that can change everything. It is not. It is the chief executive office, but it's only part of the drama.
Thank you both.